Hi boys and girls, today we are going to start learning about decimals in our math lesson. So here I have a picture of the place value chart, and so what we've talked about so far are the ones place right here, the tens and the hundreds, and so on. So as it goes this way, the place value gets bigger. Okay, and so we haven't talked about what is on the other side of the decimal. So here's the decimal point, like when we are writing money, or we're going to start converting fractions to decimals. The first number on the right side of the decimal place is called the tenths. Okay, and we know from fractions what 1/10 looks like. Okay, 1/10, and that is what this place value right here is. It's the tenths place, and we're going to look at that today. Okay, so if I were to write a number here, let's say I wrote 354.5. Okay, so what this number means is that this is actually 300. This number means 50, and this number is 4. And then on this side of the decimal, we're in the tenths place. So this number actually means 5/10, which looks like this. 5/10 as a fraction, 5/10. Okay? So knowing that, now we're going to go through, if you want to follow along in your math workbook, page 323. I'm going to go through the problems on the first page there, and then you can do the back side for extra practice on your own. Okay, so the first problem in the book says, color to match the fraction or mixed numbers and write the equivalent decimal. So the fraction they have written under this is 5/10, and I already colored in the fraction for you because it takes a long time, so I didn't want to spend time doing that on the video. Okay, so I colored in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 10 spaces. The numerator is 5, the denominator is 10. Okay, so the numerator tells me how many pieces I'm talking about, which are the shaded pieces, and the denominator tells me how many pieces there are total, which there are 10 total. Okay, and so to convert this to a fraction, the fraction to a decimal, as we saw up here, 5/10 is the same as 0.5. Okay, so we're going to put a 0 in the ones place to hold the one spot, put a decimal point, and a 5. So 5/10 is equal to 0.5. Okay, and we also know that 5/10 is half, or 1/2, so that also means 0.5 is 1/2. Okay, number 2, it shows 7/10. Okay, so I already shaded in 7 of the pieces out of 10 total. 7 pieces out of 10 total. And so that means that this decimal will be 0.7. So 7/10 is equal to 0.7. There's nothing in the ones place, and then there's 7/10 here. All right, number 3, it has the fraction 2/10. So I shaded in 2 of the spaces to represent 2/10. And so that means there's 0 in the ones place, decimal point, and 2/10 behind the decimal place. So 2/10 equals 0.2. Okay, number 4, the fraction is 8/10. So I already shaded in 8 out of the 10 total. So you can go ahead and do that as well. And 8/10 is equal to 0.8. Okay? All right, then we're going to start adding in some whole numbers. Okay, so far the decimals we have done only have to do with the fractional part or the tenths place. Now we're going to start seeing numbers in the ones place as well. Okay? All right, so we have on number 5, we have one whole box that's shaded. So the whole thing is shaded in. That means that we have one whole. And then the next box, there are 5 pieces shaded out of the 10 total. So that means 1 and 5 tenths. Okay, so 1 whole and 5 tenths. So as we write that as a decimal, that would look like this. 1 whole is in the ones place, and then 0.5. So 1 and 5 tenths is equal to 1.5. Okay, number 6. There's 1 whole piece, 2 whole pieces, and 3 tenths of another. So this fraction is showing 2 wholes and 3 tenths of another piece. Okay, so 2 and 3 tenths. If we write that as a decimal, in the ones place, you would have the 2 decimal point 3. So 2 and 3 tenths is equal to 2.3. Okay. Number 7, we have 1 whole piece shaded. So there's 1 whole. And then over here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces shaded, which you're going to have to shade in yourself. And so that's 6 out of the 10 total. So this fraction is 1 and 6 tenths, which is equal to 1.6 for the decimal. Okay, so 1.6 means the same thing as 1 and 6 tenths. All right, the next part in your book, it's asking you to write the equivalent decimal. So the one that is equal to the fraction. Without showing a picture, we're just going to do it by using the fraction. So we know that 6 tenths is 0.6 because there's not a whole number here, it's all a fraction. So 0.6. Number 9, 9 tenths is equal to 0.9. Number 10, 1 tenth is equal to 0.1. Then if we move down to number 11, now we have some whole numbers. So this one says 2 and 4 tenths. So we would write this decimal as 2.4. So the 2 is in the ones place. It's a whole number. And the 4 is in the tenths place. 2.4. Number 12, it says 7 and 8 tenths. So 7 goes in the ones place, decimal point 8. This is read as 7.8, and that's equal to 7 and 8 tenths. And the last part on page 323, it says to write the decimal. So number 13, it says 4 and 2 tenths. So that means 4 and 2 tenths. Notice that I put the decimal point where in the place that I say the word and. 4 is the whole number, and 2 tenths goes in the tenths place. Okay. Number 14, 2 and 4 tenths. So 2 and 4, I started to write a fraction. 2 and 0.4. Sorry, that one's a little messy. My paper was starting to slip. So 2 and 4 tenths is equal to 2.4. Okay, so that's our lesson on decimals to the 10th place today. And you'll have some IXL lessons to go along with that. And remember, you can also do page 324 for some extra practice in your workbook.